Hello, everyone. It's my first time here, but I tried to browse through YouTube to see what some other super folks had spoken about whenever they came through here. And I was like, that's so super technical. So I said to myself that I'll just make sure that today is about Tales by Moonlight. We just tell stories so that way you just let the technical stuff go to the next speaker. And in that light as well, my aim is to try to help you see how your story becomes so important in this age of AI. So important. There's all this trend going on now with people coming up with caricature of themselves and all that. So I did it yesterday. And then I said, give me a caricature of myself based on what you think my job is. As in, I've been talking to you, ChatGPT, for months now. You should know what I do. And then he just came up with some, and I was like, yeah. And it was me. It was the things I do, but it was a white guy. I was like, oh, a white guy? Come on. I'm not telling you enough stories. And I then sent a picture of myself, and he brought it back, the exact same thing, but it was me this time, meaning he did get it. What he just didn't have was more context. And it just makes you understand that as AI continues to develop, remember how we used to build websites a few years ago, and you buy a website theme, and it has all the lorem ipsum on it. That's the way it is. When you just buy this nice shining tool, and then it keeps saying, we need data. Like, come on, there's data everywhere. It comes in as lorem ipsum. So until you go in there, give you context, give you some understanding, then you start to really, really flesh it out. So today is really about you owning your own story and then making sure that in the age of AI, anything that you write for your brand, for yourself, for your development stuff, for your prompts, it just rings out about you. I studied law in a very cool university in Nigeria. People say it's the best university there. Don't argue with them, it's true. You wouldn't know anyway. But yeah, and when I finished from law school, I really needed to, I just didn't get it. Like, just go to law school. Finish from law, you go to law school. Nigerian parents are almost like, I don't know how many Indians are here, or there's some types of parents, You're only 4 things you can study when you go to school. It's medicine, it's law, it's engineering. Celeste was the last one. What? Maps? Mathematics. No, that's part of the old medicine. If you study mathematics, go to medicine. Don't bother going anywhere else, And so there was just nowhere for the soft skills, and if you are in the social classes, then you go to law. So I remember very well that I had 2 courses come up for me. One was international relations and one was law. And then I loved international. I went into the department, I signed up, all of that. And then they just kept calling my name 2 weeks later, like, why is anyone looking for me? Like, oh, they're looking for you in law. You're in law. I'm like, no, I'm in international relations, I'm not in law. Like, oh, sorry, your dad already mentioned to the dean and they put your name in there, so you need to go. I'm just like, oh my goodness, this guy. And so that's why I studied law. So when I was done with law, and then in Nigeria, sometimes they just have breaks. They call them breaks, but it's because someone is fighting with someone is not happy with somewhere, with government, so they shut school down. And so I had about a year or 2 before going into law school. After studying law, you go to law school. I had 2 years before going into law school. And so I was just waiting. I was like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? The guys that brought the beans in, I'll be like, oh, do you need an accountant? Do you need someone to take your books? The guys just come in like, just picking up beans. Can you just get off the way? I'm like, what can I talk to? And then one of my friends called me and said, hey, someone is looking for a personal assistant. You might want to go for the interview. I was like, yep, that's the job. I'm going. And so they gave me a date, and I was going into this very beautiful, tall building. And I got to the building, and I was like, okay, why is everyone wearing suits, looking really serious and all? I'm just wearing some nice short skirt. My shoe is a shoe in front, but slippers at the back. I'm just like, what's going on here? And so I went back home. And then at the date table in the evenings, which is a culture of my dad, it was like, so how was your day? I went for this interview, but I didn't really go in. Like, why? I was like, because it looked too serious. Okay, I'll go with you tomorrow. So my dad left his work, he went with me the next day. Once I got into the interview space, he left. But I remember very well looking at the guy that was interviewing me and seeing in his very big screen something I looked. I said, "Oh, do you collect paintings?" I was like, "No, that's a website." I was like, "Oh, that's a website. Okay, so how do you build this?" And then he started to tell me, yada, 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 yada. And so I started to become his PA, but I was more interested in what they were doing at the back office where they were building the websites. So remember, I was there for 2 years before going to law school. By the time I was going to law school in 2 years, I was already head of the business, meaning I won most of the deals for the business when it came to websites. Some of them being some of the big telco companies some people might know called MTN. So by the time I was done with that, I went to law school. And then when I was done with law school, MTN, this big telco company, was already looking for me. And they said, "Hey, we love the way you made us enjoy building our website. Do you want to come work for us?" Like, "Yeah, what job do you have?" "We want to get everyone within the organization to love to use a tool called SharePoint." I was like, "SharePoint? Okay, cool." I didn't know what it was. So I was like, "Yeah, if it's technology, I can make them love it. Let's bring it on. Let's do it." I got the role. And then the first week, I'm like, "This is SharePoint? This is tough. I don't like this SharePoint. How do I get people to enjoy to use SharePoint?" I don't know how SharePoint became a thing, and it's still until today. But every time I have the opportunity, I'm always saying, "Microsoft, what were you thinking?" But we had to do that. I was like, at a point, I just said to them, "What is one use case we're trying to solve with this task you've given me?" And then they explained to me what they wanted me to do with HR. I said, "Okay." So remember the first place I worked? There were some young boys there. So I just got them. We were almost like Maverick at night. When everybody was going home, the boys came in the evening and they built this whole enterprise out. I was like, "Thank you." So when the company saw it, they thought it was SharePoint at first. I was like, "No, we built it from scratch." And they're like, "Oh my goodness, we already asked PwC to give us a quote for this, and the numbers were so high was why we dropped it. You guys have just built it?" Yes. So I became a superstar. And with that, they moved me to a country called South Africa to work from the group office there in Johannesburg, and said, "What you've done in Nigeria, please duplicate it across all the countries that MTN was in." So that helped me to visit as many countries as you can imagine, including some interesting places like Yemen and Afghanistan. And it just helped to just see how really do you get people to love and enjoy to use technology. And that all happened, and my story goes on and on. Now, fast forward down there, worked in few places, then I started my own agency. And when I started, I was really, really balling. People already knew me, so I knew exactly what to do. I started to hire people. I remember the first 2 people I hired, because I resigned from my job and just went home and told my husband, "I'm resigning." And he's like, "You can't just resign." I'm like, "I think I can just resign. Let me just try." And then I hired 2 people. And he said, "Why are you putting people in my living room?" I said, "Because when I wake up and I see them, I'll remember I have to pay them salaries at the end of the month. So that way, I don't just give up on this job." And he's like, "Okay." And so I paid them. And then I started this thing. After doing this, I'm becoming quite successful. I had a great office, had some big, good clients. This time it was the husband that came. And he said, hey, guess what? I got a job. I was like, "Yay, you got a job. Where? I didn't know you had your job." I was like, "No, it's the same job, but now I'm moving to Dublin." I was like, "Wow. Remember when I went to Johannesburg, you didn't come with me. So you need to go to Dublin on your own." I've never heard of the place before. I don't know what they do there. I just know we go. And he was like, "No, it's a cool place. In fact, one of the judges is on American Idol or something." I was like, "Really?" So then we started to think about it, and I said, "I'm not going to Dublin. I'm doing well here. You go, I'll be fine." But the deal breaker this time was the fact that we had a daughter. So I had to make a move. And then we came to Dublin. But before we came to Dublin, I remember so well asking him for a meeting with his manager. "I need to talk to your manager." He was going to work with the same company, was in Dallas Citibank, and so he was just moving into city in Dublin. So I said, "Can I talk to your manager, please?" And then I spoke to the manager and I said, "Are there jobs for people like me in tech in Dublin?" He said, "Oh, everybody's in Dublin. All the big 4, everybody, and they keep looking for people like you. When you come in, you're going to get a job." I was like, "Okay." I didn't know that there was a place where, it was just all free for all. They're just looking for people with jobs. And then I went into that country, and the first week I said to myself, "I'm just going to give it a break. I'm not going to look for a job on time, so people just can chill. I'll get into the market very soon, but for now I just wanted to just know this place." And after a month, I put my CV together, and then I sent it out there. Crickets. It's okay to laugh at me. I'm serious, it was crickets. No response. I was like, oh, maybe because I sent it to only 10. Let me start again. And the volume grew. And then I would get one response at a time, and one time he said, we love your experience, but you have no local experience. And before I knew it, I started hearing the word no local experience, no local experience. And then someone would say, oh, your CV is 3 pages long, make it 1 page. You make it 1 page, and they would say, oh, it's too scanty, they don't really know that you make it 5 pages. Like, it was a mess. I'm sure many of you have gone through this one time or the other. And then after doing all that, I just started, the company I was running in Nigeria just continued. I just created one in Dublin. I just started to build logos and do whatever it was that was available. And then a friend came to me one day. This was in the third year of being in Dublin with no job. She came to me and then she said, hey, I'm going for my master's. And it clicked. I said, I've always done law, but I've always worked in marketing. So maybe I can do my master's in marketing. And maybe there I could find local experience. And then I went for my master's. Evening classes, that's always a good hack. Because all the guys that are working right there in the classroom were 12 of them. And I remember even going into that school, that particular school, they asked me to come in for an interview. So I said to my husband, I got an interview. He was like, oh, really? I was like, yeah, for the course. He was like, well, we're still going to pay. I was like, yeah, but you need to get in, you know? I said, okay. So I went for the interview. And then when I got in, I was like, yeah, I got in. And then the first night, everyone was like, you know, the first night before the main classes, you know, everybody just comes together, have drinks. I was asking the class guys, how was your interview? Was it pressure? You know, like, no, we didn't do an interview. And I asked the person, did you have an interview? No. Did you have an interview? No. The only black girl in the class was the one that was called for an interview. Okay, I got the point at that point. I wasn't taking it personal. I'm here now. I'm going to be in this class. The 12 of us, the only girl, only black girl, marketing class, all the guys in there, running things in their companies. So that became my local experience. They would share examples from their classes, from their work. They would share numbers, they would share places, and I learned a lot from them. So sometimes those learnings are good, you know, because you do get some things out of that. And then when I left that job, that happened to be the reason why I had my first referral and my first job. Because one of those classmates got a job in a new place. He asked me to go, get anything in there for you can refer me. He did. And that was my first job, which was at HubSpot. And when I got into HubSpot, it was for a job that was customer experience. I remember so well that the job I saw online was replatforming or whatever, it was technical. I was like, oh, I build websites. So they'd be like, oh, what's Java? I'd be like, oh, it's PHP. I'll put all the techy things in there. They would get confused. By the time I was done with the 7-place interview, they came back and said I didn't get the job. But they said, hey, we love the way you looked at marketing and strategy, and we have another job for you. And that's how I got that job. So when I got into that job, the 3rd month, I asked them, when can I move to marketing? And the guy looked at me and said, are you mad? You just got here 2 days ago. Oh, you've not even done a year and a half. You already want to move. So that's when I also knew it was going to be tough to just move. I said to my manager, I said, when can I move? She was just like, Adebola, you just have to chill about this. You just da-da-da-da. Okay. And then she now became very, you know, like, I don't know. So every time we go for our one-on-one meetings, I would speak to her. And I just noticed that she wasn't just listening. She was just in a hurry. So that was how I started my journey with LinkedIn. Because every time I had my one-on-one with my manager, since she won't listen, I would go to LinkedIn and I would put my feedback there. And then with time, she asked me, do you have any feedback for me? I was like, no, I'm okay. I don't want to read it on LinkedIn, Adebola. I'm like, oh, do you see it? You know, and that's how LinkedIn started for me. You know, and I just started to understand that when you put your story in there, someone is reading it, someone understands it, and it also was a place of expression for me. Long story short, I understood exactly what to do within that place. I went into Slack. I became the person in Slack for every product marketer that needed to understand what customer experience was doing. They wanted to know what customer stories were, I gave it to them. So when a job opened up in product marketing, guess who got it? In 9 months, breaking that record, I was out of there and I was in product marketing. And it was product marketing for technology, which I really always loved and enjoyed. So one day I was in that job, and our co-founder, his name is Damesh Shah, was meant to have a meeting with me on how we're thinking CTOs were buying HubSpot. And in that meeting, he said something. He said, Adebola, people are talking about algorithm now being so crazy because of like YouTube Shorts and the likes. He said in a few months, people are going to be talking about this thing called generative AI. And I said, okay. And he continued talking. At that point, I'd already zoned out. I left that meeting and I went quickly to Google and I said, what is AI doing in marketing? Any courses? And I saw one course only on Coursera from University of Virginia on AI and marketing, and I took that course. So when I took that course, I got the certificate, I plastered it all over LinkedIn, and I started talking about AI in marketing. You want a prof in AI marketing? AI marketing examples they taught us during that course, it was me. I was all over the place. And then I got a call from Women in AI. And they said, we love the way you tell the stories about AI. Because we are just professors, we are researchers, we're so techy. But you can bring that other angle to it. And that's how they made me the head of communications for Women in AI in Ireland. And I started to do all that and talk about it. And every time they had an opportunity for someone to speak about AI and gender, what do you think they go to? The head of communications. She can tell the stories. So I got to travel to as many countries in Europe as possible. More than that, I became a lecturer in Ireland, teaching in some of the top universities. UCD, I taught AI and gender. In the school I went to for masters, I was teaching AI and marketing. In another school in Trinity, I taught AI and international marketing. That's how the trajectory of my journey has gone, because I just didn't say no. If you say no, I found a way around it. And so a year and a half, I became the ambassador for Women in AI in Ireland, and I was leading that, the European Union, going into consultative conversations, and it broadened me. By that time, I'd left HubSpot, and then I started to work with some guys, but long gone. Today, I run a team of AI engineers building AI infrastructure for companies across continents. Our first client was in the USA, now in Nigeria, now in Europe, and we're growing the team exponentially because I just refused my story to be just like any other black woman that came into a country with a husband who was so tough. I'm sorry, I forgot to wear my ring today. My husband is still alive, is well, and is the annoying reason, okay, not annoying, don't let me bust him out here, why we now live in London. We moved here about a year ago because I decided to leave City and move with Barclays, so there we go again. But this time, I didn't fight him because, hey, I've got my own gig. If you like, go to the other part of the world. I'm okay. Just find me a nice place to sit and be and pay my monthly bills so that I don't have to spend a kobo of my money. But that's the way that my story has come through and continues to expand, continues to grow. And it helps you understand that when you then start to see how your own story builds, and I'm sure many of you start to think about, see our journey and see how she's come to where she is today. I imagine my own journey and how I am where I am today. Let that become the trigger when next you write a prompt, when next you write a story, when next you write your LinkedIn post. So what I'm just trying to say is always make sure that you give your AI tool your own memory, because it's got no memory. It's got the last person that gave its memory. It's got whoever it is that is so loud on every platform's memory. But does it have your own memory? And I become so passionate about this when I talk about women as well, because the library is filling up. But how many of them have female perspective in it? It's not because women are not there. It's because women just like to, some of us just like to take a chill pill. People are looking for folks on the panel. A guy's hand is up already. A woman is wondering, I don't know it 100%. Do I really need to put my hand up? And so you have a lot of guys just coming up with their PhD, PPHD, LLM, PPROP, but they have all the alphabets on the planet right after their names. Come on, guys, we get it. But that's the thing with women. We need to be bolder as well, because our girls need people who can show to them when they do a search online to say, who is a business owner? Who is a leader in tech? We want some women to come up as well in those caricatures. And that's why it becomes important that not only do we need guys to be allies, we need women as well to put that hand up and say, hey, I'll do it, I'll fix it, I'll get in there, and I'll make it happen. So when next you're writing anything, try this very much. The lens. What's the lens? What's the voice? And what do I want people to get out of this? What's the lens? The lens will always be your perspective. No two people can tell it the way you tell it. No two people lived in your particular house, had your particular sister, brother, cousin, mom, had your particular street name. No two people, you're that unique. So whenever you try to write anything, anchor your story so that it's not generic at all. Make sure you try to slice it up to say, what's the story here? You're trying to write something for work and you're saying, when I was in the meeting, what was one unique thing that happened that stuck with me? When you put the perspective in when you're writing that email, your manager gets it or your colleague gets it, they'll be like, oh, you're really listening. Or they themselves, they'll be like, that person is deep. So that's why people say, oh, I see a lot of posts, they look the same, I know it's AI. But when you put that whole slice of your story, your perspective, what you felt, it could be anything at all. That just changes everything. And I'm saying as well that when we start to sell as business owners as well, start to think about it and say, we're now in the marketing world of micro content. We don't need to send the same email to every type of person. The CFO gets the same, CPO gets the same, CEO gets the same. Come on, now we have ChatGPT, we have all the forms of Copilot, whatever it is. Try and ask it, give me a bite that only the finance person will appreciate. And then that content goes to that person. You can start to micro bite the things you say, not just trying to sell something and then you send one email to everybody. That world is passed on now. Everyone just seems to believe in, who are you? How do you sound? When they see something that you do and how it sounds, you should amplify the kind of personality that you have. And remember as well, something I like to say as well whenever I try to talk about this is, your story comes from continuously experiencing things. Travel. Come to spaces like this, which is great that you have. Read a book. Talk to someone you've never spoken to before. You come to events like this, you speak to the same person you're at home with, the same person you're at work with. What is the difference? How do you expand your story? It's like a bank, you get what I mean? And that bank is what differentiates your colleague from you, the depth of your bank. So when next you're trying to tell something or do something or just experience life, because whatever you experience in life is what you bring into the bank and to your story that continues to make you unique in the world of AI. We'll continue to talk about AI for as much as possible, but the differentiator would always be who is able to learn, own, and really just own their own stories. Because facts we tell, but stories, that's what people remember, and that's the way that when they remember, that's what builds trust when they do business with you. Thank you.